Storm, who is this guy? Who are you?
My name is Kurt Wagner, but in the Munich circus...
Nightcrawler has appeared in 4 live-action movies, but he hit his peak in his first movie, in his first scene. Usually, that would be a bad thing, but his opening is so sweet that I don't think I mind that much. Observe.
Perfection. You're so beautiful. Wanna cry?
After X1's so-so action scenes, held together by strong characters rather than necessarily exhilarating melee, X2 came out the gate with a scene that blew the first movie out of the water. It needs little introduction, it was fawned over back when it came out, and it's still considered one of the best scenes in the entire series. The attack sees Kurt Wagner, who in the Munich circus was known as the Incredible Nightcrawler, attack the White House in a sequence channeling early 2000s War on Terror paranoia.
Don't shoot!
With his human face paint wearing away, Nightcrawler looks downright terrifying. The kind of face that could give the insidious fella a run for his money. Nightcrawler's iconic smoky teleportation had never been rendered in live action before, but they nailed it in one. Not only does the effect look fantastic, the sound effects are spot on. You can practically hear the bamf. Bolstered by John Ottman in the editing room, it cuts together some highly effective, disorientating shots as Kurt lays waste to White House security. I love seeing Kurt teleport from one guy to another in one shot. This whole sequence could have easily gone shaky cam, but instead his powers are perfectly captured on screen. It all reaches an incredibly tense crescendo when the final agents are in the Oval Office with the President making a last stand. The slow-mo here is so perfect. The post-Matrix effect on action filmmaking abundantly clear and used to great effect as we see Nightcrawler zipping around the room. And did I mention Ottman's score? The appropriately titled Nightcrawler Attack is operatic and suitably epic, retooling Mozart's Requiem for a scene involving 2 famous Germans. It turns out that of course this wasn't the kind-natured Kurt we know from the comics. He was brainwashed by Stryker and forced to do his bidding in a botched assassination meant to drive mutant fear-mongering. In the rest of X2, Nightcrawler's importance wanes in favour of Wolverine and Stryker's dynamic, Jean's final moments, and Xavier being influenced by Jason, not to mention Magneto's meddling. But he does get some nice beats with Storm as the dynamic develops.
Sometimes anger can help you survive.
So can faith.
I like that Nightcrawler's faith remained intact as a key facet of his character, and it works really well when Storm in turn proves she has faith in him.
I told you, if I can't see where I'm going...
I have faith in you.
The X2 tie-in prequel comic written by Chuck Austin actually fleshed out a lot more of the Weapon X backstory that was every bit as tragic as the Wolverine story. It detailed Kurt's origins in the Munich circus and actually put him in a comic-accurate outfit, whilst also revealing that he was in love with a woman called Amanda. They fall for each other after Kurt harboured unrequited feelings for some time. Mysterious. But tragically, it is revealed that he's actually in Stryker's hands and has had his mind manipulated by Jason Stryker. He is tortured and coerced into doing their bidding, but perhaps the saddest thing is that by the end, Alkali Lake works out how to extract a serum from Jason's powers, meaning they can force Kurt to do whatever they want without screwing with his mind. So all of the pain of losing the fake life of Amanda and finding out that she didn't even love him in the first place was utterly pointless. I think one of the only things that is really missing from X2 is an action beat with Nightcrawler to balance out his brainwashed violence at the start. He was actually set to fight a returning Toad in this movie, and the set was even built. It ends up being cut, which is a shame, because the original trilogy Nightcrawler ends up getting just one action scene, and he's not actually himself. As a kid I loved this scene, but it didn't excite me as much as say Wolverine vs Lady Deathstrike, because we didn't get one of our favourite X-Men in hero mode. It worked for the story, but it meant that X3 really needed to develop full tilt arse-kicking hero Nightcrawler, which of course did not happen. Alan Cumming was unsure of returning due to the long periods of makeup before each shoot, but his decision was finalised when original director Bryan Singer was replaced by Brett Ratner. He probably made the right decision, as X3 is easily the weakest of the 3 original movies, and Nightcrawler only had a minor role. Still, one of my biggest pet peeves with the finale is the lacking roster of X-Men. We added Rogue and Nightcrawler to the team in the last movie, so it would have been cool to have had them there as well as Scott. If it was supposedly the last stand, then it should have had the biggest and best roster of the trilogy. Even Colossus, who had less lines than in X2, shows up for the final battle.
Even the guy who can't think says something, you guys just stand there?
Wolverine and Storm anchor a lot of the film as a duo in the absence of Scott and Jean, so maybe it would have been nice to have had a mainstay from the second movie with them in Nightcrawler. I could have so seen him helping out during the battle with Magneto's acolytes at House Grey, as well as comforting Logan and Aurora when Xavier dies. Even though Alan Cumming's Nightcrawler didn't appear again, he was a main character in the tie-in game set between X2 and X3. X-Men, the official game, wow, managed to get all the playable characters, Wolverine, Nightcrawler and Iceman, voiced by their respective movie counterparts, which did a lot of the heavy lifting, making this feel like an addition to the canon, even though it's probably non-canon now that we have Days of Future Past and the Sentinels there. This would have been the perfect time to give Kurt his own comic book suit in keeping with the style of the movies, similarly to what they did with Beast in X3. Unfortunately, he sticks to his X2 look, although the red and white colouring is a welcome addition. Kurt actually gets a kind of nemesis in Jason Stryker, and it builds off what happens in X2. Jason feels he was abandoned, and to be fair, I always thought it was weird Kurt didn't even attempt to save him when Dark Cerebro came crashing down. Nightcrawler also gets a physical antagonist in Multiple Man. Now that is a great power matchup. Imagine if X3's Multiple Man had gotten the chance to fight Nightcrawler in that movie, the former making endless copies taking on the teleporter. It could have been like the burly brawl on steroids. The official game isn't very good, but it does serve to scratch the itch for more Alan Cumming Nightcrawler, and it serves to give us a somewhat plausible reason for him being absent in X3.
You're leaving. I am not suited for this life, Professor. I am a simple man.
After this, we got 2 strong allusions to Nightcrawler's father in the X-Men movie universe. In the X-Men Origins Wolverine game, Will.i.am's teleporter, John Wraith, is revealed to be in a relationship with Mystique, where it's heavily implied they are Kurt's parents.
What you think of the name Kurt?
Much like X-Men the official game, its canon status is iffy, especially when the movies later did their own version of the Sentinel Apocalypse. But it's kind of fun to do in the game as a little Easter egg. The more significant, and arguably far more likely to be canon candidate, is of course Azazel.
Azazel?
He looks like Nightcrawler, only red and more demonic, has the same smoky teleportation effect, and there's even space in the timeline for him to get busy with Raven post First Class.
And got busy!
Even though we never got more Alan Cumming Nightcrawler, Jason Fleming's Azazel was the next best thing. He actually got some awesome action scenes, the highlight being his imaginative murdering from great heights. He straight up Looney Tunes all the CIA agents, and then finishes it off with some cool bladed action, more than Kurt ever got. Interestingly, he seems to be able to teleport further than the limits of what he can see, making him more adept than Nightcrawler at the time of X2, although he is clearly less acrobatic and agile. With Azazel coming back against all the odds in the MCU no less, it would be doubly awesome if he fought original recipe Nightcrawler in Deadpool and Wolverine. What if they even acknowledged their parentage?
He's my illegitimate son from Azazel. He was born in
Azazel too? Great, okay, brilliant.
It's infuriating that both versions of Mystique and Nightcrawler met in the movies, but their relationship is never touched on. Park this right next to Magneto and Quicksilver never getting to be father and son.
I'm here for my family too.
Just tell him, you idiot. I would have loved for Alan Cummings' Kurt to cameo in Days of Future Past at the end of the movie. With iterations like Kelsey Grammer's Beast restored, it would have felt so right to have him back on the team. I could see the argument that he was in either the Broken Future or the Past segments, but neither was Scott and Jean, and they both made a triumphant return once everything was put right. I said in my Days of Future Past breakdown that this movie felt like the big finale to all of the other X movies. It tied both the first class and original cast, it went more sci-fi than ever, saw the X-Men facing a huge apocalyptic scenario, and fixed the deaths of key members from the maligned third movie. The franchise could have ended its story here, so it would have made it more of a box set if Kurt had made it into this little coda. Also, I wish Bishop, Blink and the other 3 mutants had been in that epilogue too, since they worried that they would be erased when history was reset. In the final film, there's nothing to suggest they weren't erased, which is actually really dark and sad, although I guess quite cool depending on how you look at it. Cody Schmidt-McPhee was cast as the younger Nightcrawler in X-Men Apocalypse, which was fun casting as he'd already starred in a western with Magneto himself in 2015's Slow West. The younger cast are a mixed bag in terms of their synergy to their older counterparts. As I detailed previously, I don't buy that Nick Holt Hank turns into Kelsey Grammer Hank, nor do I buy that Sophie Turner turns into Famke Jensen. Young Cyclops and Storm kinda work, but I think the best young X-Man prequel to sequel casting is easily Nightcrawler. Of course it helps they kept the design the same, complete with those iconic tattoos. I like what they did to Beast young to old. Ugh. But it really is the casting of Schmidt-McPhee that sells it. He sounds like the original Nightcrawler, and he has his cautious, shy and endearing attitude down pat. I appreciate giving him a rival in Angel, and the iconography of pairing the two as an angel and a demon works really well. It's just a shame their rivalry doesn't really go beyond that, and their fight isn't particularly good.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Interestingly, Angel almost made it into X2 and was going to be a modern day Weapon X experiment. Alkali Lake was going to give him adamantium wings and turn him into Archangel, which ended up happening by Apocalypse's hand 13 years later in the revised timeline. If it had have happened, Nightcrawler and Angel would have both been subjects of Weapon X in X-Men 2 and would have perhaps come to blows even earlier. It's a shame in retrospect that he missed out on fighting Toad, Angel and Multiple Man. Even though Kurt gets more screen time in his younger form across 2 movies and a cheeky Deadpool 2 cameo, I feel like he's far less integral to the plot and has less of an arc than his freshman appearance. In Dark Phoenix, he falls away into the background even more than in Apocalypse, having next to no bearing on the plot and little to do. The only saving grace of that movie is he gets a few kick-ass moments in combat. We get to see an enraged side of Kurt, utilising shrapnel as knives in a cool close quarters sequence. There's also a sadistic moment where he teleports one of the alien baddies in the path of the speeding train. Look at that smile. Devious. Dark Phoenix is the closest we got to seeing Kurt handle his trademark swords in live action. In 2006, the same year he was sadly absent from X3, we got an awesome Blur Studios cutscene in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Fully realising what a live action scene with his weapons would be like. "18 years on, this is sadly still the closest we've come. I wish the Alan Cummings iteration used some swords in X-Men 3 had he been a part of it. It would have been so good."
Dang, I'll be a wet bird on a live wire.
I love the character's presence in X-Men 97, providing a ray of life and light during the early part of the Genosha episode.
You Americans, so theatrical.
Man named Gambit. Your poker face is very poor.
Hey, mind your beeswax, Bobo.
Life is violins and close-ups. I blame soap operas.
He wasn't the focus of the first season, but he helped carry the spirits of the team, and it was just nice to get more of this character in an adaptation after so long, to be honest.
No, mein Freund. Nein.
His combat team up with Wolverine was utterly fantastic in the penultimate episode, a highlight of course being when we see how the teleportation works from an outsider's perspective. This action team-up just makes me even sadder that Hugh Jackman and Alan Cumming never got any kind of significant team-up. X2 is a peak X-Men movie, and it delivered a great Nightcrawler. I only wish we had gotten more. Will Alan Cummings ever return to the role? Honestly, I think there's more chance of a return to Doctor Who at this point.
Come back to London with me, Ryan. Be my protector.
He's never seemed too enamoured with playing Nightcrawler again, and it would mean going through the undesirable makeup process. Unlike Beast, there's no way you can get away with an all-CG reprisal. However, if Cummings did come back along with the original trilogy X-Men, as it's expected in Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as Avengers Secret Wars, it would be nothing short of epic.
I am soaking wet right now.
Imagine seeing James Marsden, Halle Berry, Hugh Jackman, Famke Janssen, Kelsey Grammer, and Alan Cummings alongside the younger cast in those movies. It feels like a pipe dream, but so was seeing Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield or Hugh Jackman in their respective roles ever again, so who knows. Anyway, I'm off to rewatch The White House Attack again. Oh, it's sweet. What do you think? Did Nightcrawler peak in X2? Did you prefer the prequel version? Who would you cast as Nightcrawler in an MCU reboot? Let me know in the comments below. I'm enjoying these X-Men character breakdowns, and I'm thinking I'd like to do ones on Colossus, Juggernaut, and even Stryker next. So please check them out, and please check out my previous videos on Beast, Sabretooth, and Cyclops if you haven't already. I've also got some pretty sizable breakdowns on X-Men First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past, which I think are well worth checking out. As always, a big thank you to TDW Fan and Dr. Chike for keeping the lights on, for being my full fat tier patrons. Thank you very much. If you want to get early releases of my videos, or catch up on my latest reviews of Doctor Who, including Dot and Bubble and 73 Yards, then head on over to patreon.com/fullfatvideos.